Dust off your jerseys, grab your Waukee caps. Got the whole team ready, no turning back. From the hardwood floors to the diamond bright, we're here to talk sports all day and night. Yeah, it's a sports show, from the opening tip to the final, we're with you.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode live of the Catching Up with Cody podcast. I'm your host, as always, Cody. We have another great guest, Brian from the Last Row podcast. You guys have probably seen this stuff popping up on TikTok, YouTube, all of that. He is everywhere. And, I thought I knew sports, but listening to this guy, wow, I need to dig a little deeper on my sports talk here. But thank you for joining, man. How have you been? And kind of tell everybody a little bit about your channel.
Yeah, so thank you so much, first and foremost, Cody, for having me on the show. Greatly appreciate you and all that you do, man. Love your stuff. I catch you all the time when I'm not prepping and so on and so forth. Yeah, so we're a sports show. We're based here in Northern Illinois, but we spread nationwide just like you do. And we are NHL, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, college football, college basketball, the major stuff. We do all of it just like. Just like any other sports show, but we market this from a fan's perspective on sports, where it's real fans, real talk. You're front row to it all, we started this about a year ago, right around mid to late September. We started, and we've just seen tremendous growth. You talked last week on the show that you were on with those guys, and the name is slipping.
Oh, the Sports Reel.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And those guys were, you talked about consistency, and those guys were absolutely, you're spot on with being consistent. So we typically are on every night. Summertime is 9 o'clock Central Time, which I know is late for some, but we also we have the podcast available next day on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We're on YouTube Live, X Live, TikTok Live when we're not restricted, and all of that. So so we're just out having a good time and giving fans a maybe a different viewpoint, and like to try to be as homerish as I can about the Bears and the Bulls and the Sox and the Cubs and the Hawks and all that stuff, but. When it's time to call stuff out, it's time to call stuff out, and that's what we do. And just like any fan does.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I've been seeing your stuff everywhere, and you kind of are the reason why
no audio from you, brother. I can't hear you all of a sudden.
Can you hear me?
Nope, I got nothing from you. Keep going now. There we go.
How about now?
Yep, now I got you. I don't know what.
All right. That's all right. It's all right.
We did an audio check, believe it or not, before we came on here. I promise we did.
There we go. No worries. But yeah, no, I've seen your stuff everywhere, and you're doing a great job, man. So let's, there was some big news that has been happening. So let's kind of start off with the Eric Bieniemy story with his wife being shot. Ended up turning out to be the son is the suspect, which is a crazy thing. I mean, you never hear anything bad about Eric, and it's like, how all of a sudden, like, what's going on? And I know details really haven't emerged yet. I don't know what you've read or seen or anything, but what's kind of your take on what's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking this morning to read the story, and I was fortunate enough to be at Bears camp last year and to see the impact that he had just in his 1 year in Chicago, and you could really tell the players really gravitated towards him. The fans did as well, because the fans know the connection that he had to Andy Reid and how long he was with Andy Reid and or Matt Nagy, the former Bears head coach. So there's all kinds of different, intertwining that's gone on between the Chiefs and the Bears, and Ryan Poles being a former scout there, so on and so forth. It was incredibly sad to hear that story today and this morning that it was the son, and he's 27 years old. He's charged with malicious wounding in the shooting of his mother. Multiple gunshot wounds, but survived the attack. Thank God. I Otherwise we don't know anything else other than that, and that's you know that's all that there is. So there's going to be questions as to why. There's going to be questions as to the motive. Why would he do something like this to his mom? You feel for Bieniemy, who is back with Andy Reid, his first year back in Kansas City, taking over for Matt Nagy, who's now with the New York Giants as the offensive coordinator there. Bieniemy knows the system. He knows Andy Reid's system. And I think that's one of the things that will benefit him having time away, as I'm sure he's going to have.
Yeah.
And knowing the Chiefs organization and Andy Reid, those guys there are not going to mess around. They're going to tell him, get on a plane, get home.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And rightfully so. Figure out what's going on, and I hate to use this term that Matt Nagy always used, but, figure out the why. Why did it happen? And then, just kind of go from there. And ultimately, I think that for them and for his family, ultimately, it's going to come down to, what's next, what's best. But I mean, just a horrifying and horrible story. And we won't know all the details until, the full story comes out. But, there's, I'm sure, rumors already speculating and things like that and circulating around. But we're not going to comment on any of that because we don't have any hard facts. And, Adam Schefter was the one that broke it early this morning, almost about 10 hours ago. So, I mean, it was an early morning story that I guess it happened last night in their home in Virginia. He left the training camp. Bieniemy did this morning per Schefter. To get back home. And, now at this point in time, their son is being held without bond in a detention center in Loudoun County. And, at this point in time, that's all that we know. But just a sad story. And it happened to one of the really good guys in the NFL. I mean, Bieniemy has had such a long, storied coaching career within the NFL and primarily with Andy Reid and the Chiefs. And for so many years, he was thought to be the heir apparent to Andy Reid. Now, being back with him, I'm sure that's going to happen. But, obviously this has taken a incredibly, odd turn.
Yeah. And it's sad. I mean, like I said, there's never a negative thing out there with him. And it's like, a lot of people, I know the first time when he was under Andy Reid, a lot of people wanted him to be a head coach. But, I think he could be a great head coach. Don't get me wrong. But I think he likes being that coordinator and kind of being the second hand to Andy Reid, especially in that organization. Obviously I'm a huge Lions fan, but the Chiefs are a great team, a great dynasty, and they have a great coaching staff. They have great players. So, super sad news to hear about it. It's like you said, why do things like this need to happen?
Yeah, and I just don't understand it. And the nice thing is for them in Kansas City, if there is a nice, little bit of glimmer of hope here, is that, this is a veteran group. Andy Reid still calls the plays. The biggest addition that they've had besides Bieniemy is Kenneth Walker III, who's going to take to that offense very quickly, pretty much as any running back has. And so that's going to be the benefit there for Kansas City is they've got a veteran squad with Mahomes coming back. He's been cleared. It looks like it's going to be their last dance in Kansas City, to take that term from the Bulls in their documentary. So I just think that it's overall, it's incredibly sad, but hopefully good comes out of this with mom and the wife and Eric himself. Hopefully it was, an accident, but again, we don't know anything at this point.
Yeah, for sure. But we'll definitely be, keeping up with that story as details do come in. We talked off air before we got on here. Another kind of breaking news that happened over the weekend was Kyle Shanahan and his car accident. I haven't heard too much about it. I know, like I said, we talked a little bit of it before we got on here, but that's another thing. Like, I'm glad he's okay and everything. I know that he had some broken ribs and some other injuries, but obviously overall he's good. How much have you heard from this story? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so Chris Sims, he and Chris Sims of Pro Football Talk, formerly of NBC Sunday Night Football in America. He does a lot with Notre Dame coverage on Saturdays as well. He and his wife are very close to Kyle and Kyle Shanahan's wife, and they just spent a weekend or two together just a few weeks ago, according to Chris Sims. And apparently, when the accident happened, Kyle's wife texted them immediately and said, "Hey, Kyle's been in a bad wreck." And she sent them pictures. And I guess from what Chris Sims was saying, the pictures were pretty bad. And according to what Chris Sims said, he was super close. Kyle Shanahan was to losing an eye. And this was talked about this morning on Pro Football Talk. There's a little bit more here to the story than I think that's what's being reported right now. There were things that have come out, and there's a guy that's on X, Tony Farmer, and he's an investigative reporter. I have a journalism degree, and he is a throwback to an old school reporter that is going to, get on, pound the pavement, get the information. He's done a ton of work on the Mike Vrabel, Diana Rossini thing. And he is now digging into this story because it's a big story at this point in time. And what looks like what's happening is the 49ers and the Palo Alto Police Department in some way, shape, or form have kind of pushed this, little hush hush. And Farmer has been the one to kind of go and dig into this a little bit. And if you follow him on X, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And Dan Patrick did it earlier this morning as well. Awful Announcing has a story on it right now, and the headline is Dan Patrick calls out ESPN for holding Kyle Shanahan car crash story. So there's a lot that is at this point in time unknown, but we know this much: he broke 3 ribs. He had to have 40 stitches in his face, broken nose, broken hand, severe concussion. The part to me that is a little bit eyebrow raising at this point, and look, we're not even into preseason week number 1, okay? But the fact of the matter is, if he's being held out of camp right now because of severe concussion symptoms, and he's having these symptoms still. So he has to, according to what John Lynch said, he's got to go through the concussion protocol, just like the players do.
Oh, okay.
A little bit different in terms of the coaching side of it. But, this is very interesting to me, and we talked about it last night on my show, that, the Shanahan-Kubiak relationships dates back all the way to, the 90s with the Broncos, and I think even with the 80s with the 49ers. And with Mike Shanahan being an OC there and Gary Kubiak being a coach, and then they went to Denver together. They won Super Bowls there. Well, now, of course, you've got, Clint Kubiak, who was the former OC in Seattle last year with the Super Bowl champion Seahawks. He's now in Vegas. Well, prior to that, he was with Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. Well, now his brother, Clay Kubiak, is now the new OC in San Francisco. So what we talked about last night in connecting all of these different dots with the Shanahans and the Kubiaks is that, Kyle Shanahan, when he comes back into the fray, whenever it is, and Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk said they were going to, the 49ers were expecting him to be ready for the regular season. Preseason, everybody runs, vanilla play call anyway.
Yeah.
So in this instance here, it seems as if Clay Kubiak's going to get a real shot here to call plays. And I think this is a really good thing for the 49ers because, God forbid, Kyle Shanahan suffers any type of lingering concussion symptoms into the regular season. You're going to have a guy that is established enough now, running the offensive meetings with Brock Purdy and with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and now Mike Evans and all of these veteran leaders on the offensive side of the ball. You've got Clay Kubiak now doing that. And I think that's going to be a really big part for the 49ers. If Shanahan's back week 1, great. If other stuff comes out here about Shanahan and what may have happened, and again, there's a lot of speculation going on, lots of it right now. And I'm sure news will come out because the Palo Alto Police Department is saying that they are not going to release who was at fault at this point in time, which normally anytime there's an accident and there's a news story about it, they'll say, oh, such and such was, cited for reckless driving or whatever. They're not saying that yet, which to me says, okay, that's a little weird.
Yes, for
from
sure.
a journalist standpoint, okay, why aren't you releasing that? Is there more investigating that has to happen? Are we waiting on toxicology reports? What's the story? So far, we don't know any of that. But be that as it may, at this point in time, what we do know is Shanahan is in camp, but he's in a limited capacity. And, Chris Sims' story this morning about, Shanahan nearly losing his right eye. That's pretty doggone interesting. That's a hellacious crash then.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it's interesting to see how the 49ers are going to react because, look, in my opinion, this is a make or break year for them. Their division is not any easier. They are by far probably the third best team in that division. And the way the NFC is stacked right now, Cody, they could have a winning record and miss the playoffs. And then I think you have to question, Christian McCaffrey, Mike Evans, George Kittle, maybe not even Brock Purdy per se, but, if they had a Baker Mayfield or if they had a different quarterback in there, would that make them a better team? So we'll have to just kind of wait and see. But this whole story with Shanahan it's very intriguing to me.
Yeah, for sure. And like we kind of talked about before we got on, if just come out with the story. Obviously somebody's at fault, somebody's not at fault. He either crashed into somebody crashed into him. It's pretty cut and dry for the most part. So we'll have to be keeping up with those two stories. But yeah, big news coming out this weekend with both of those things happening. So
yeah,
we'll keep an eye on that one. And as information comes in, I'm sure both of us will be breaking that news for sure. We talked about a little bit of ESPN. So over the weekend and, in the last week or so, ESPN is laying off a lot of people and not just, your average Joe people. There's some big names, and I know you on your show a couple times have mentioned some of them, but you got Ryan Clark, Cam Newton. These are some big names. Ryan Clark, I feel like, was on every show on ESPN. Cam Newton, I believe he just signed with ESPN or an extension not too long ago with them.
Yeah.
So a lot changing in ESPN. I feel like this happens every couple years. But honestly, I feel like with the streaming and with, all these shows and stuff, they kind of got to keep certain people on. And unfortunately, some people are going to be losing their jobs.
Yeah, it's an unforgiving business, that's for sure. And when there's a major acquisition like what took place with ESPN and the NFL Network, where ESPN now owns NFL Network, one of the names that I was absolutely shocked to see let go was Tom Pelissero from NFL Network. And Tom is as good of a journalist as there is at that network. He, with Mike Garafolo and Ian Rappaport, the three of them had a show together called The Insiders, where they would break news all the time. One of them would have a story about one guy, another would have a subsequent story relating to somebody else, relating to that. And it was all, just shocking to me. But when you have these acquisitions like they did at ESPN, some people are going to get bumped. Some people are going to stick around. I don't want to hear anybody say that it's Pat McAfee's fault,
I'm glad you brought that up. I do want to talk about that.
because it's not McAfee's fault. Look, ESPN has signed some really bad contracts over the years. McAfee not being one of them. McAfee, I feel, has revitalized not only their midday coverage with his show, with the Pat McAfee show, but you look at what he's done for College Game Day
Oh yeah.
this fall, and you combine him with Nick Saban, and I said for years, Nick Saban, when he was done coaching, would be the perfect replacement for Lee Corso, and that's exactly what he's become. But Pat McAfee and him have this really interesting dynamic together that I didn't think I wasn't sure how Game Day would react to it. And oh my gosh, is it the best thing ever? McAfee has revitalized and he's brought a lot of energy to that network. But we've also seen ESPN recently get very political. And, the Ryan Clark stuff, the Robert Griffin III stuff, kind of, pointing things out and calling people out. Look, ESPN has been, as Dan Patrick calls it, the mothership of sports coverage since the early 80s. It's been the standard bearer for it. When you have acquisitions like this, of course it's going to be bad news because people are going to lose their jobs.
Yes.
A name that I was shocked, and I'm just going to be flat out honest with you, is Carl Ravitch. Carl Ravitch was there 33 years. He is one of the mainstays. He was their voice of baseball for a long time. Did sports centers. I mean, just overall, incredible broadcasting talent. Went on his podcast and his radio thing that he does the next day and didn't pull any punches, took the high road, said things like this happen, and I'm sure all those people that lost their jobs, unfortunately, are going to find work through The Athletic. They're going to find work at, Fox or CBS or ABC or NBC, wherever. But, I'm a little bit surprised just at how negative the reaction has been regarding, this is Pat McAfee's fault when it's truly not.
No, and I'm a huge Pat McAfee fan. I mean, I watch as much as I can of his, shows every day. College Game Day, like I think he's the reason. I mean, obviously, plenty of college kids and fans were down there for College Game Day before he was on. But his field goal kicks that he does, the amount of money that he donates. I mean, he's doing so much for the community and for ESPN. I think that if he could, he would have all those guys stay at ESPN if that was his decision.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's a lot to put on one guy, one network. I mean, he's doing what everybody else is doing. He has the connections that he has, and just unfortunately, people are liking what he's doing, and he's doing it more of like an interactive, having fun type way, as if like you're hanging out with the boys. You're just hanging out, and that's, I think, a lot of people can't really do that, and he took a chance on being on there, and he's been doing a great job ever since. And I think a lot of people are relating to Pat McAfee and his crew. And like I said, I don't think he's doing anything negative for the network, anything negative for the sport. I mean, like I said, even for College Game Day, I mean, he's out there singing, he's out there having fun, he's donating money, he's doing everything good. And so that's why I think, like, pointing the finger at Pat McAfee, that puts a lot of pressure on not only McAfee, but like, now is he thinking like, hey, do I need to, revamp how I do my show? I don't know. It's tough, but yeah, no, for people saying that this is Pat McAfee's fault, it's ridiculous, because I feel like if Pat McAfee were have gotten fired, people would be like, oh, ESPN's doing something bad by getting rid of this guy. He brings in so much to their network. So again, like in anything, they're gonna say one thing, and then if it happened the other way, they'd be saying the same thing.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that, the fact of the matter is, what McAfee has brought to ESPN is what sells, and that's viewers and that's ratings. And unfortunately, it's a numbers game. And
Yes.
McAfee draws. And you talked about, College Game Day, you talk about the Friday before. So when they're in College Station, Texas, or they're in Gainesville, or they're in Tallahassee or Athens, or wherever they're going to be, for that Saturday, and he does his show there, they draw just as big of crowds there at his show as they're drawing for College Game Day. Plus, you've got the simulcast with, his show on radio, his show on TV. He just brings eyes and he brings ratings. And that's what sells in TV is ratings. And that's what you want.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the same thing. Like, when he does the on-field angle of college football or whatever, whatever sport it is, like people want to be on the field, but obviously, I mean, can't afford to be on the field, or it's not even possible to be on the field. So he brings that point of view for the average person sitting on their couch. Like, to be honest with you, I think I watched 95% of the college football national championship from Pat McAfee's point of view on the field rather than the actual broadcast.
Yeah, he makes it entertaining, and he gives you a different perspective on that. And now ESPN is having him branch out not only into football, but he was, of course, part of the NBA Finals coverage, doing the McAfee stream, and his, the other factor here too that we've brought up in the past, at least on my show, is McAfee's ties with WWE. And ESPN now is has on their ESPN Plus app the WWE, pay-per-views, as all the old wrestling guys know it as.
Yep.
And now they're performing live events, PLEs. Those are all now on ESPN Plus. And McAfee has a huge tie in there. So, McAfee doing the NBA stuff, more than likely, I think, doing more WWE stuff, College Game Day. I mean, all of it is intertwining, and McAfee is at the center of it. I just don't like the fact that McAfee is getting blamed for it. And McAfee addressed that. He said, look, this is a complicated business. And he goes, if I could stop those people from losing their jobs, I would. It's not Pat McAfee's decision to let go of people that were acquired from NFL Network. It's just not. It's unfortunate, but again, those people are going to land on their feet that were with ESPN, that were with, NFL Network. There's no question in my mind. I'll tell you one name I'm glad they didn't get rid of, and that's Laura Rutledge for their NFL coverage. And that's because she does a phenomenal job with that. And I look at her like I did Maria Taylor. Maria Taylor had her breakout, coming out party, if you will, on ESPN on College Game Day. And it started just snowballing from there, and then she gets swooped up by NBC. So same thing could happen with Laura Rutledge, I have a feeling. But the good news is I think ESPN is going to be – I think they're done with the cuts for now. We'll see what happens here as the year goes on. I'm curious to see what happens with Good Morning Football. I'm curious to see what happens with SportsCenter. There's been talk of Scott Van Pelt leaving the late SportsCenter. I don't like that idea personally, but – because I think he's done a lot to make that like a news show, which is really, really good. So, we'll see what happens. ESPN's still gonna run the gamut and be the the standard bearer for sports coverage.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, it's really tough. Like I remember like as a kid watching like SportsCenter and ESPN like every morning, and now like I think with all the streaming stuff, with all these different shows that are happening, like SportsCenter doesn't have that same feeling as it once was. So maybe that's part of, all the layoffs and everything. But like you said, I think a lot of these people will find a job. They'll only be out of a job for a little bit, but they'll find something. So
yeah, no doubt.
Speaking of people at the center of things and in the spotlight, LeBron James finally decided finally, no, you're good. We're on the same page. Finally decided on where he wants to go. And he decided to go to the Philadelphia 76ers. Why? Couldn't tell you why. I don't know if Brian will be able to tell you. And, I know he wanted this to be about him, and that's why he took so long and all the stories. And when he was on Tyrese Halliburton's podcast and everything. Like, I don't know. I think for me, I think Cleveland is where he should have went and should have just ended his career. I know he came out and said that he thought he was gonna be done this season. I don't buy that for a second. I think that's just him trying to win over some people of being like, oh, see, he can do it. He was never gone, blah, 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 blah. But what's your take on, first off, LeBron's still playing, and second of all, why he chose Philly out of all the teams he could have picked from?
Well, I mean, I think, he averaged 21 points a game as a 41-year-old guy. I think it was 7 rebounds or 7 assists and 6 rebounds, something like that. I might have those numbers mixed up, but he was still effective for the Lakers. And look, he's the reason why the Lakers got into the playoffs last year. He and JJ Redick. My opinion is this, okay? LeBron is always about one person, and that's LeBron. And he can talk about, I feel like Philadelphia is the place, where I can help them and get them to the next level of a championship. No. You're looking for another payday. Granted, he's taking a veteran minimum here, but you're looking for another payday. You're looking at a guy that wants to compete for a ring. But here's my thought on this, Cody. And maybe I'm old school and I'm out in left field here, but LeBron always makes it about LeBron.
Yes.
We never heard the term load management until LeBron James came in. I think Cleveland would have been a great fit for him. I think if he wanted a chance at a ring, I think honestly his best fit would have been the Eastern Conference, but not with the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers to me were set. They didn't need LeBron James. The Sixers had a huge offseason already with getting Jaylen Brown from the Celtics. So now what you're doing is and we talked about this on the show last night and last week when it happened. You're talking about taking Tyrese Maxey out of it. You're talking about taking VJ Edcomi out of it. You've got Joel Embiid, who hasn't played more than, I would say, 60 games a year over the last 5 years.
Yep.
LeBron hasn't played more than 70 games, if that. I mean, I said last night on the show, if he plays 65 games, I'll take the under on that, and I bet I'll be right. Because LeBron being 41, look, he's not the LeBron James that he was 10 years ago when he went to the Lakers. He's just not. He's an older player now. And, there's pressure now on not only LeBron, but Joel Embiid. And even more pressure now on Nick Nurse, the coach for the Sixers. And I said it last night. If things go south early for Philly, do not be shocked if LeBron James gets a new coach in there, because LeBron is all about LeBron, and LeBron wants his guys in there, whether it's Tom Thibodeau, who he loves, who he's never played for. That is a name. Just keep it in the back of your mind. July 27th, 8:35 Central, 9:35 Eastern. You heard it on the Catching Up with Cody podcast. Just keep in mind Tom Thibodeau. That's a name that LeBron has always, or who LeBron has always wanted to play for. He's never gotten the chance to. Thibodeau doesn't have a job. Just saying. I think Nick Nurse, it's going to be on a short leash for him this season. I truly, truly do.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that you bring up Tom Thibodeau, because I feel like there's a lot of fans out there and some players that don't like his coaching style and everything like that. So I'm surprised that would fit LeBron's kind of agenda of what he would be looking for in a coach.
I think it's because LeBron is of one of the only ways LeBron is of an old school mindset is he wants to be coached hard. And he respects Thibodeau. He always has. He's been on record as saying that. Now, do I think LeBron and Thibs would be a good match? No, I don't. But it's not for the reason that people think. LeBron is still a very good defensive basketball player. And yes, he can still average 21, 8, and 6. Okay, we know that from this year. I'm not sure if Tibbs and LeBron together defensively would make the most sense, but I will say this much. We saw Jimmy Butler have his best years defensively under Tom Thibodeau when he was the Bulls coach and up in Minnesota. Granted, he's much younger than what LeBron is now, but I think LeBron and Thibodeau together could be a very intriguing defensive nightmare for teams. LeBron can still play defense. There's no question about that. And then you get a coach like Thibodeau in there who can take a guy who was a rookie in Jimmy Butler and turn him into a defensive two-way player that all of a sudden now is an NBA superstar, second round pick, nonetheless. So that's just a name. I'm throwing it out. I don't know anything. I haven't heard anything. Obviously, I'm not that connected, but like it just makes sense. And Nick Nurse has won a title in Toronto, so he's got that credibility. But Frank Vogel had won a title as well, and Frank Vogel was the coach in LA before JJ Redick, and LeBron ran Frank Vogel out of town, who he wanted to play for. He said,
Yeah.
So I just think LeBron's got a lot. He's still got pull. And that's what I think makes it about him. And I feel bad for the Sixers because, with Jaylen Brown, I truly thought they were going to make a really good run. And I think now it's just kind of been tainted because of LeBron.
Yeah, for sure. All I know is I'm glad he didn't come to Detroit. I know a lot of people wanted him.
Or Chicago.
Detroit was on a name. I'm like, no, he's a good player, but behind the scenes, it's bad news Bears.
Right, exactly.
So question for you with, he did take, 2 years, $8 million. Do you think that number was on the table for your Golden State Warriors, your Miami Heat, some of the other teams that he had on his list? Or do you think, like kind of what I was thinking and talking to people, I think he had a different contract number for each of these teams that were on his list?
Yeah, I would bet. I would bet Golden State would have had to have made a massive move, getting rid of Jimmy Butler and a couple of other players. And there's still rumblings that Golden State might try to do something big to get help for Steph Curry. I was reading that earlier on today. I think LeBron had and Rich Paul, his agent, had a number in mind. When that number wasn't getting the response that they both thought it would, maybe they got together and said, okay, you know what? Let's prolong this a little bit. Let's make it drawn out. And let's see. Publicly, Miami was courting him. Privately, according to everything I've read, Giannis didn't want him there because Giannis just wants to have his time in Miami, the Miami culture, the Heat culture. It didn't make sense for LeBron to go back there. It made more sense to me for LeBron if he was going to stay west to go to Minnesota. I think he and Anthony Edwards would have made a dynamic pair. But now you're taking what Philadelphia did a year ago in the playoffs and you're pushing it back.
Yes.
And you're saying, okay, Vet, go lead us, go lead the way. But I think he had a different number in mind. I truly do. I think he thought he was going to get more money, but in reality, it just didn't work out that way.
Yeah. And honestly, to me, like maybe this is his realization that father time is catching up. A lot of teams, would like to have LeBron, but if for an only like a rental player, I guess you could say, a 2-3 year player, like, do you want to give up everything for him? So we'll have to see how it pans out in Philly. I'm kind of on the same page with you. I don't think it's going to pan out as a lot of people think it's going to. I'm sure they're already at the top of the betting list of being NBA champions and everything like that. But the way like New York played, hopefully Detroit played like they did last year. There's a lot of teams that can compete with Philly, and I think that can surpass Philly. So,
I don't think anybody out of the East, maybe other than the Knicks again, is going to get by either San Antonio or Oklahoma City. And until somebody does, now look, New York did it last year, but Wembanyama now has a label of a dirty player, and he's going to play that heel role beautifully now. So, there's going to be chips on shoulders in Oklahoma City and in San Antonio, in Philadelphia as well. But the problem Philly's going to have now with LeBron and Embiid, you've got two major players that are going to be out 2/3 of the season realistically.
Yep.
And, then you're asking, VJ Edgecomey to come back in and Tyrese Maxey to come back in and have big games again like they did a year ago. And this time have Jaylen Brown beside them. And I think the three of them together could make Philly absolutely incredibly difficult to beat in the East. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, for sure. One last thing, NBA wise, since you're in the Chicago area,
Yeah.
I've been hearing that a lot of people think the Bulls might be pretty decent this year. What's your take since you're there locally?
Yeah, I mean, so getting rid of Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley, the former president of basketball operations and GM, happened probably 3 years too late, realistically. Um, the financial hell and how they did the Bulls dirty in their time here was pretty incredible. The fact that Bryson Graham was calculated, he knew who he wanted. He was very meticulous in how he wanted to go about his coaching search and getting Tiago Splitter. I was one that had Splitter listed as my second pick for the Bulls. I wanted Sean Sweeney, the guy that
Okay.
got hired in Orlando from the Spurs. After watching the finals, I'm really glad they didn't go with Sweeney because the collapse that the Spurs had in the finals when leading 4 out of the 5 games was incredible, and it was all on their defense. So I'm wondering if Orlando is kind of going, oh boy, did we make a mistake? We'll have to see. I really like what the Bulls did in the draft with Caleb Wilson. I like what they're doing in terms of building around Modest Buzelis. Look, Tiago Splitter, when he took over a tumultuous situation in Portland last year, when Chauncey Billups got arrested, Splitter came in as the interim guy there. No matter what he did, even winning an NBA title there with the change in ownership and how bad the ownership in Portland right now is and how they're stripping things down pretty much to the studs by getting rid of players, by getting rid of broadcasters, coaches, all this stuff. Splitter was looking for a place. Chicago is, I think, a perfect spot for him because they're a young, up-and-coming team. They've got a little bit of a veteran mix in there, but mostly it's young. And I like Tiago Splitter. I think Splitter is going to be very, very good for Modest Buzelis. I think he's going to be really good for Caleb Wilson. Everything I saw from Caleb Wilson in the preseason or in Summer League, I loved. I'm really happy that they pulled him for the last game because there's no need for him to be out there. Once you saw what he could do the first 2 or 3 games, that's it. You don't need to see any more. Get him into the practice, court at the Advocate Center, whatever. Let him develop. Let him learn. Let him work on his game, refine his game. Because come this season, he and Modest Buzelis are your 2 big, stars. And I think Buzelis is on the rise. I truly, truly do. And I like the fact they got Nick Claxton, who either is going to start or he's going to be or he's going to be their center coming off the bench. Either way, I think his role is going to be perfect for them because they need a rim protector. They've got to have a rim protector. Caleb Wilson, I think, could be that rim protector as well. I've seen a lot of people talking about comps to Kevin Garnett with Kevin Durant's shooting ability. Let's pump the brakes on it. We haven't seen it yet in the regular season, but I will say this much. What I've seen from him, I see why they're saying that. I also see why there's comps to like Dominique Wilkins, which is an old school name. Now, if the Bulls just got Dominique Wilkins, okay, I'm there for it. I'm down for that. But there's a lot of things that have to go right for the Bulls. I think they're going to be a better team defensively. I'm curious to see what Splitter's offensive game plan looks like. But again, I love the hire for them, and I think the Bulls are finally on the right track, kind of back this way a little bit. Billy Donovan did what he could, and no ill will at all towards Billy Donovan. I don't believe any Bulls fan has anything bad to say about Billy Donovan. He came in, he did the best job that he could with what he had. He was really handcuffed by front office. And the front office said, "Oh, we're ready to win now." And Billy had to coach them up like they were ready to win. And they got into the playing games, except for the last 2 years. And that's a credit to Billy Donovan when you had a guy like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, neither one of whom liked to play defense.
Yep.
When they were all healthy, and you had Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic. When you had those 4 on the court together for that short first year under Billy Donovan, They were the best team in the NBA. They had the best record in the NBA, and they were running. And the Bulls looked legit. And they were playing defense because of how good Lonzo Ball was. Then Lonzo got hurt, and that's all she wrote. And then everything went downhill. Billy Donovan did everything he could. So I don't believe that there was any ill will on the Bulls side. I know the Reinsdorfs loved him. I think Michael Reinsdorf now taking over for his dad, for the most part, he understands that the fans are frustrated. He gets it. Bulls fans are stupid, though. They pay the exorbitant amount of money to go and sell that building out when the team is garbage. Now that they've made a change, let's see what, we know the attendance is going to be there in Chicago. Now it's, is the product good enough on the floor? And I think it will be. I think the Bulls will contend this year for, I'm hoping a top 6 spot, but we'll have to see. The East is really, really good.
Yeah. And that worries me as a Detroit fan because we're still trying to figure out, obviously, the Jalen Duren situation. And, I was kind of looking for add a couple pieces to get better than we were last year. And to be honest, I think Detroit did the exact opposite. So we'll have to see what goes on with that. But if Chicago's in the upward trend, it kind of worries me because Detroit is definitely not in the upward trend.
See, I like what Detroit's done. I mean, they've got a good young backcourt, a good young core. I just think their coach, is it Bickerstaff? Is he the coach?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry. He did not deserve an extension. JB Bickerstaff has never won anywhere that he's been. Detroit's been the first place that he's won. Do I think he's the right guy for that team? Absolutely not. No. But
okay.
You know what? Detroit's got some really good talent. And if they could just get, Jalen Duren to play, and to show up in the playoffs, then I think you're talking about a different NBA Finals potentially. But he no-showed in the playoffs, and that hurt his. He lost millions of dollars based on how he played in the playoffs.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's what he needs to realize is so coming from a fan of Chicago, if you're noticing it, that obviously the Detroit fans are noticing it. The league noticed what you did not accomplish in the playoffs from what you looked like in the regular season. So I don't know. I don't know if, I've been hearing that his agent's given him this kind of, hey, just hold out, see what you can do type deal, which is what agents are supposed to do. They're supposed to get the most amount of money, but we'll have to see. I'm excited though for basketball. I can't wait. I was watching Summer League as many games as I could. Obviously with the Axel Lindenberg winning MVP for Summer League. I know it's just Summer League, but a lot of people have been giving him some issues, with age and everything coming in, but I think he's going to be a good player. I'm just saying that too as a Michigan fan. So
yeah, I think that if you've got a guy that's been around at least 3 years in the college game, 2 to 3 years, I think realistically they're automatically ahead of a rookie that only played a year in college.
Yes.
Because they've got more mileage on the tires. I get that. But they've also matured, and they've also played a lot more basketball at a higher level. So, with Lindenberg, being named the Summer League MVP, I don't think it was a surprise to anybody. He's a damn good player. There's a reason why, he played at Michigan, won a national title. There's no reason why he wouldn't be a good player. But, it's Summer League. Yes. Pump the brakes a little bit. I get that, just like as the Bulls fans do. Bulls fans were, salivating at the mouth about Caleb Wilson. So, just pump the brakes here. Let's see what the regular season brings.
Yeah, we are almost there. So I'm excited for it. Another sport. Let's move over to MLB because the trade deadline I know is coming up. I'm sure you've seen it, with you being a sports guy. Tarek Skubal and Detroit. I've been on podcasts saying that I'm ready for him to go. As a Detroit fan, yes, he's a great pitcher, great ball player. With the potential lies coming out of he knew all this stuff about his elbow and all the stuff that's been happening, it's I think it's time to part ways. From a outside of Detroit, sports guy. What's your opinion with Scooble? Where do you think he should get traded? Do you think he should stay in Detroit? A lot of people think that Detroit's like World Series bound this year, and I don't see it, but maybe I'm missing something.
I mean, look, Detroit's got one of the better managers in Major League Baseball, in AJ Hinch. Let's not sugarcoat that. I think he's been handcuffed a little bit by what ownership has given him in terms of a roster. Scooble to me is as sure as the sun rises and sets every day. Yes, he's got the elbow issues. We know that. Do I think he will be traded? Yes, I do. Do I think it's going to be to the Dodgers? No, I don't. I think it's going to be a team that not many people are expecting. I would love for him to end up either on the south side of Chicago with the White Sox, but there's no way Detroit's going to do that. They're not going to trade him within the division or the American League, as far as I'm concerned. They're going to trade him outside of the league, so that way the only time they would have to see him is either an interleague play or the World Series. The Cubs are rumored to be in on it. I read something, and I can't remember if it was from John Heyman or Keith Law, longtime MLB guys, who said that the Cubs are willing to deal now, and they just released the Cubs designated for assignment today, Jameson Taillon, pitcher. The only way they're going to be able to get rid of that salary is by including him now in a trade. So, according to reports, they're talking about including big name Major League Baseball talent, roster talent, to go in a trade with their minor league pitching and maybe with, a Jameson Taillon thrown in there. Look, if Scooble wants to come to Chicago and sign a long-term with the Cubs, I think they would take him in a heartbeat. If that means giving up Jackson Wiggins, who's your number one prospect in the minors, Matt Shaw, who is probably my height at 5'5", and can play defense really, really well at third. He's a natural shortstop. They've got him playing in the outfield a little bit. They've got him playing some at second, some at third. So they've got him kind of filling that Ben Zobrist type utility guy role. I think Scooble, I've seen Robbie Ray listed potentially as a trade partner with the Tigers. Scooble for Ray and, some prospects. I've seen the Cubs in that same boat with Robbie Ray as well, having to include Jameson Taillon. I mean, Major League Baseball trade deadline is a week away. It's the 3rd. It's next week already. I think that overall, if the Tigers want to reload the farm system, they got to get rid of Scooble. They have to. If they want to get younger, and let's be honest here, AJ, Lynch, when he was Hinch, when he was managing in Houston, they didn't have a veteran squad. They were a young team with Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, all those guys. Young squad. That's what I think he excels with, is the younger players. So I think it makes sense to me, if Detroit's going to get rid of their best pitcher, then dadgummit, they better get back enough prospects to reload and have pitching, in the minors, having players in the minors, having major leaguers that are ready to go. So that way, come next year at spring training, they're not skipping a beat, and they've got a young pitching, squad, young depth, all those things. So that way they can start to get, back to being relevant. Look, when the Tigers are relevant, everything is great for baseball. They've got one of the best broadcasters in Jason Benetti, who's a Chicago guy who I was sickened to see the White Sox lose just because he was so good. And, the nation sees it now on NBC Sunday baseball with him. He's a phenomenal broadcaster that injects life into any broadcast. The Tigers, when the Tigers are good, it's good for baseball, because the Tigers have always been good for Major League Baseball. Always.
Yeah, no, for sure. And honestly, if either of Chicago teams want Scooble, I'm okay with that. It's sad because, like I said, he is a good player and everything, but it's just a lot of the outside of baseball stuff is starting to take over his accolades of him being a baseball player.
I just don't understand the, and again, I'm obviously not being in Michigan, in Detroit. I don't know all of the other stories like you guys do. I just know what I see on the field.
Yeah.
And what I see on the field is a number one pitcher who's an ace of a staff, who can dominate, as we've seen. And if you get a good defense behind him, he could be unhittable. If you get a good roster around him, he's going to be the centerpiece of a World Series championship-led team, pitching staff. So he's got everything. He's got the it factor. There's no question.
Yeah. I'm hoping he stays as a fan, but I think they're going to be parting ways just to kind of reset, like you said, get some young players in there and hopefully start planning for the future. So, but let's wrap this up with some NFL talk. Obviously, you being a Chicago Bears fan over there, big rivalry here.
Yes, sir.
I think Chicago's gonna probably take the NFC North. I'm hoping Detroit, obviously steps it up from what they did last year. I think they'll make the playoffs. But what do you see with Chicago? Do you think Chicago is going to be as good as they were last year? Do you think they'll take a step back? And who do you see winning the NFC North?
So first and foremost, thank you for saying that about the Bears, because most people aren't. I think the Bears will be a better team with a worse record. So I have them finishing atop the division. They have the toughest schedule in the NFL. You've got year 2 with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson together. You've got year 2 with Colston Loveland, who I believe is going to be a top 3 tight end by the end of the year.
Yes, great player.
You've got Luther Burden, Roma Dunze, ready to kind of ascend and really take off. You've got Kyle Monangai, a great 1-2 punch with he and DeAndre Swift. I've seen some rumblings that, they may look at bringing in Jonathan Taylor if he's available from the Colts. I don't want that. I don't think they need that. What I'm not happy with is the defensive line. You talk all offseason about having to make a big addition on the defensive line, and you haven't done it. Don't get me wrong. Dennis Allen's coaching for his job. The defensive coordinator in Chicago absolutely is coaching for his job. If they get off to a slow start, I would not be shocked if they launched him, because Ben Johnson made it clear at the end of the year press conference that we have to coach better on defense. And that was a clear shot at Dennis Allen. So, whether it's, Max Crosby potentially still in a trade, which if Vegas struggles out of the gate, the Crosby rumors are just going to heat up. I know the Bears are still talking with them, with Vegas about it. What will they have to give up? Hopefully not too much, but we'll have to see. But you put him opposite Montez Sweat, then you're talking. Vita Vea earlier tonight.
I did just see that. Yep.
Requested a trade out of Tampa. If I'm Ryan Poles, I'm on the phone now saying I'll give you 2 1s for him, or 2 2s, whatever you want. Because he would immediately help your pass rush, because he was going to require a double team, frees up Sweat, frees up Booker, whoever else they bring in. Offensively, I like where they're at. I truly, truly do. It's the defense that worries me. Bringing in Kobe Bryant at safety is big. Drafting Dylan Thieneman was even bigger, in my opinion. Him falling to Chicago was huge. So your safeties are set for at least the next 3 to 4 years, at least. Your linebacker with TJ Edwards, who's out because of a soft tissue injury, he'll be back due to a muscle strain. He'll be back, early part of camp. Kyler Gordon being on the physically unable to perform list, the PUP list, to start camp is not a good sign. He played he missed all but 3 games last year. Ben Johnson was asked last year in press conferences, what do you think of Kyler Gordon? He said, I don't know. I don't have enough time with him to see. So I think Gordon is on thin ice in Chicago. So we'll see. But I like the Bears. I like Detroit. I think, and call me crazy, and people, I've been called worse by people up in Detroit, including family. But I wonder if Dan Campbell's seat isn't a little warm.
I'm glad you brought that up. I've had a couple conversations with people about that, and a lot of people are saying no.
I have to think that it is, and here's the reason why. You let your best assistant go in Ben Johnson, and you brought in the guy from Arizona, Petzel, I think is his name, and he's more of a running game guy. Okay, that's great. You've got a great running back in Detroit that's going to set up Jared Goff for the play action pass, to Amon-Ra St. Brown and all those guys. Laporta's got to have a big year. Sam
Yes.
Laporta, to me, has to have a big year for Detroit. He's got to get back to what he was like with Ben Johnson, where he was virtually uncoverable. But at the same point in time, you've still got a really good defense with Hutch on the edge. You lose Anzalone, which I think was a big blow for Detroit because he was kind of their heart and soul of that linebacker crew. But I think Detroit is there. I think I have them, and we're going to break it down here tonight, actually, on the show. We've been doing each division and who we pick to finish where and so on and so forth. And I have the Bears 1 in Detroit 2.
Okay.
And spoiler for anybody watching. I feel that the Bears, they're probably going to have a worse record. They might win the division at 10-7. But I think that they're going to win the division. I think Detroit's right behind them, though.
I'm hoping. I mean, that defense is still struggling with injuries and everything, obviously with the safeties and everything like that, but we'll have to see. We'll definitely be in talks every time that Chicago and Detroit play each other this year for sure.
We will.
Yes. Let's wrap it up with this because obviously with you being in Chicago, thanks for taking Patrick Kane away from Detroit. What the heck is that all about? We're losing everybody. But no, it's kind of cool to see him back there, back where it all started and full circle moment. So
there was a rumor that was started today because of a podcast. I'm not even joking. Kane was on a podcast, and he said that he's talked to Jonathan Taves about coming out of retirement and coming back for one more year with the Hawks. I don't know how that would go over, to be honest. We talked about it last night on the show. We talked about it when he re-signed with Chicago. Yes, it's great for nostalgia. Yes, it's great for the PR side of it. It's also really bad for the PR side of it because the best thing that could have happened to Patrick Kane was staying out of Chicago. The fact now that he's back in Chicago, there's that dark cloud hanging over him because of what happened at the end of his tenure in Chicago with the sexual abuse allegations with the teammates from the Quinville-led staff and the Quinville coaches and the Stan Bowman teams. There's a reason why Stan Bowman got let go. There's a reason why Joel Quinville got let go. There's a reason why Patrick Kane got traded and Taves left. It's because they were all a part of it. So for Blackhawks fans, I think the bigger news is you've got somebody to step in now that Bedard's out for the first month of the season. You've got Kane, who can score goals. He's going to be one of your top 6. Realistically, on a contending team, he's probably not a top 6 anymore. He's probably at least maybe top 9. But he's going to help you in the shootouts. He's going to help you on the power play. He's going to be a guy that can help, teach Frank Nazar, who I think is actually a better player than Bedard myself. He's going to help Bedard out. So it's giving Connor Bedard, the guy that he wanted to have, back in Chicago on a 2-year team-friendly deal. If the Hawks struggle, I wouldn't be shocked if Kaner's on the trading block. I really wouldn't. Just because they could probably get some decent value for him again. But at the same point in time, I know Hawks fans are ecstatic that it's showtime again. But I really hope that they're going to go into the season with expectations that are tempered a little bit because he's not the Patrick Kane from 2015, 16, 17, 18.
Yep.
He's older. He's not nearly as fast. Yes, he's still deadly with the puck. Yes, he can still shoot the lights out. But he's not the same Patrick Kane as he was previously. And I hope Hawk fans understand that. I hope they recognize that because, I hate when guys come back for a second tour of duty that were so good where they once were. Because inevitably, and it's true with movies, right? The sequels often never match the original.
Yep.
And I'm just hopeful that Kaner doesn't regret coming here versus going to a team like Buffalo that it's its hometown team. We'll see. A guy who I'm shocked is still with with Detroit right now with the Red Wings is Alex DeBrincat. You lose Dylan Larkin, right? Kaner's now gone. Now you got DeBrincat. DeBrincat would be a real nice fit in Chicago. I'm
hey, one guy at a time. One guy at a time.
Just saying, okay. But the Catman is such a good young athlete and such a good young player. I don't think Detroit can afford to lose him. But at the same point in time, what are you bringing back into Detroit to help him? And that's the $1 million question right now for the Red Wings.
Yeah, and that, I've said it a couple times. Like, I think Larkin demanding a trade is going to be the domino effect for this Red Wings team, and it's kind of already happening. Patrick Kane's leaving. Like, if I'm DeBrincat, I'm looking around that locker room like, hey guys, I might be heading out next, right behind Larkin. So,
or it could be the opposite factor for him. Okay, now I can finally assert myself as being the leader of the team, and he never got that chance here in Chicago. Maybe this is his chance now in Detroit to do so because he's always been around Kane. He's always been around Taves. He's been around guys that are massive stars. Maybe this is where Alex DeBrincat's star starts to rise a little bit, and he gets that, a little bit more bass in that voice and becomes a leader of a young team. We'll have to see.
Yes, for sure. Well, I'm hoping so. I mean, because it's been a long time since the Red Wings have made the playoffs, so I'm hoping for maybe the playoffs this year. So we will have to see what happens. But what a great show. Honestly, like, your stuff, man. Like, I love watching your content and all the lives that you put out and everything, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff. Why don't you plug your stuff, let everybody know where they can find you at, and what's kind of coming up on your channel?
Yeah. So, well, first and foremost, thank you again for having me. Greatly appreciate it. You do such a great job here, and you do everything to the tens, man. I mean, it's outstanding. So thank you for having me on. It's my pleasure. I look forward to having you on the show here in the next week or so. We're going to finalize the date here off the air and get you set up with it. But yeah, so you can check us out every night, Monday through pretty much Monday through Sunday. Typically on TikTok when we're not restricted, but also on X Live, on YouTube Live. You can catch the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We are just, we're here for the ride, man. And with the NFL season right upon us, college football right upon us. I mean, everything is just starting to kind of go, and we're coming up on our 1 year anniversary. And I think episode tonight is episode 210. So, which is crazy to me because in the beginning of this, I never thought I would make it that far, but we have so far. So, yeah, appreciate the platform, and appreciate everybody that's, buying into the show tonight and watching it. And yeah, we look forward to doing more of this together.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely be having you on again. Everybody go check out the Last Row podcast. Like I said, on TikTok, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. It's been a good episode as always. We will be here next Monday again, live on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. We have a athlete coming on, Tyler Kolka from the Arena Football League of the Nashville Cats.
Nice.
I went to high school with him, so kind of cool to see, where he started when he was playing high school football to now in the Arena Football League. So don't want to miss that one. It's going to be big. I'm actually pretty nervous about it, so I got to get all my ducks in a row for this next episode. So
you'll be ready. You'll be great, as always.
I hope so. So thank you guys again for tuning in to another live episode of Catching Up with Cody. We will see you guys next week.